Hey everybody, welcome to Every Movie Ever. This is the show where we are trying to review every movie ever. We're not there yet, still a long way to go, but spring has sprung. It's a lovely day. We decided to come outside where the nice weather might help to alleviate some of the problems with Vampire Academy. Vampire Academy it could have been awesome, right? The idea of like a high school with Dracula at it could have been pretty good. This is kind of a Twilight thing, but everybody in the school is a vampire, kind of. It's very confusing. It is not very good. I did not like it. 1 star. What I did like a lot, though, was The Guest. So this movie, I saw it on the Netflix. This is a movie that stars that guy that was Matthew from Downton Abbey. I'm sure there's a lot of Downton Abbey fans out there. He shows up at these people's house. He is like he's a veteran from Desert Storm or whatever, not Desert Storm, but Afghanistan, and he needs a place to stay. So they give him a place to stay. Turns out he's kind of crazy. He's a crazy killing machine, out to kill a bunch of dudes. About 45 minutes in, it all gets pretty bloody, pretty awesome. 3 stars all the way. Another good one, saw this one on the same day, It Follows. It Follows is a horror movie from a year or two back, and this is a terrific one. The whole story is an allegory for STDs, and it focuses on a young woman who she goes out with this guy, and then the next day she's being haunted by a ghost. And here's the deal with the ghost. The ghost is very slow. You see the ghost coming up the street, and it just it walks at a regular pace. But here's the deal. If the ghost catches you, it's going to kill you. Here's the second deal. The ghost is only going to stop coming for you if you have romantic relations with somebody else. Then it will go after them, but once it kills them, it's coming after you again. So you can never stop it, and if it ever catches you, it's going to kill you. Again, it is pretty slow, so you can keep running, but it's always, always coming after you. It's a really clever idea, a real clever concept. Like I say, nicely couched in allegory, but you know, it's the sort of thing that I'm sure they could corrupt into some sequels later on down the road that I'd probably still watch. Good young cast, good direction, really recommend it. 3 stars. Speaking of recommendations, I've got to recommend Spotlight, which, real controversial, right? This is a movie that won, I'm sure, a bunch of Academy Awards a couple of years ago, if I could remember. I do not. It's a terrific movie. This is the one that's about the Boston newspaper team that exposed the priest, the Catholic priest, sexual scandal in Boston. It's a really terrific movie. It's a classic journalism movie about journalists finding a story, following it through, hitting the pavement and figuring it all out. Great cast, including Rachel McAdams and Mark Ruffalo. Michael Keaton's in there. This is a really terrific movie. It's a little bit slower paced, but you get to follow them throughout the investigation. It's a lot of fun. 5 stars. I recently revisited The Phantom. This is a movie I liked a lot when I was younger. This is the old, comic strip character, the guy in the purple outfit, played in this movie by Billy Zane as he runs around in a jungle punching guys. It's not bad, but it's not great. There's a lot of silliness and campiness that drags it down. Plus, it's an inherently troublesome concept because it's another one of those white savior stories where you've got a white guy in the African jungle who saves all of the brown people from everything. So pretty problematic. Also, the Phantom's costume in this, they've got a bunch of like skull designs all over it. Kind of dumb, but there's a charm to this movie. It's no Rocketeer, but it's got some good moments, some fun ideas, a really fun role for Catherine Zeta-Jones. I'm going to give it 2.5 stars. I also should have mentioned with The Phantom, Kristy Swanson has a pretty good, I like Kristy Swanson a lot, not in a lot of movies, but I'll tell you another movie she is in, Mannequin 2, On the Move. This is the sequel to Mannequin, the Kim Cattrall, Andrew McCarthy movie about a mannequin, what comes to life, falls in love with a human being. This is the sequel. Nobody from the first Mannequin is in it except for the character Hollywood, played by Meshach Taylor. Meshach Taylor or Meshach Davis? One of the two. The guy from Designing Women, he's back in it. And this is another magical mannequin movie that seems unrelated largely to the first one, this mannequin doesn't know the other mannequin. Just so happens that Hollywood is once again involved in a story where a guy falls in love with a mannequin that can come to life. It's, you know, the original Mannequin is kind of good. And this one, you know, I kind of liked it. I would say I liked it. It's pretty bad, but it's kind of charmingly bad in a lot of ways. The bad guy with a big hairy mole is kind of a lot of fun. He's got these 3 German henchmen who are pretty hilarious. Christy Swanson is charming as always. I can't say it's a good movie, but I did like it, but I can only give it 2 stars. Speaking of part 2s, how about Neighbors 2, Sorority Rising? This is the sequel to Neighbors, the Seth Rogen, I am sorry, Mr. Rogen. The Seth Rogen, Zac Efron feature that also stars Rose Byrne. The whole cast, the whole principal cast anyway, is back in this one, wherein, you know, in the first movie, a fraternity moves in next door to Seth Rogen and Rose Byrne and their baby. Now a sorority moves in next door. So it sounds kind of, you know, very sequel-y, very, oh, this is the same movie a second time. But they do some fun things and some smart things. They really take the opportunity to explore the whole concept of sororities and how the way that they're governed is kind of broken and they're not treated in the same way that fraternities are, and how that sucks. So it's a movie with some ideas and some good laughs. 3 stars. Let's talk about Rowdy Roddy Piper in Hell Comes to Frogtown. Rowdy Roddy plays Max Hell in this Mad Max ripoff about a guy what lives in a world after the apocalypse that has to go to a town run by mutant frogs for a reason that I don't quite remember. Is this a good movie? Not particularly, but it has its charms. Amongst them, most primarily, Rowdy Roddy himself. 1.5 stars. Pee Wee Herman's back in Peewees Big Holiday, a direct-to-Netflix movie. I was kind of dubious about this one. When you see, you know, direct-to-Netflix, what's this going to be? Is this going to be any good? And you know what? It was pretty good. It was fun to see Paul Rubens back as Pee-wee. He did a great job. It was a real fun story about Pee-wee and his new best friend, Joe Mantoliano, or however you say it. Really fun movie. Liked it a lot. 3 stars. Now, the kids today, you know the kids. The kids today, they love that Lilo and Stitch. It's the Disney movie that you didn't know was a classic. Checked it out again the other day. Pretty good. Holds up pretty good. It's a real charming story, a good story about family with some solid animation, a lot of stuff in it, you know, a really good, strong lead heroine with Lilo. Stitch is pretty funny. You can't not like this movie. 3 stars. A movie that you could get away with not liking, though, is Penguins of Madagascar. Now, the penguins are always the best part of a Madagascar movie. And so when you do a whole movie that's just about the penguins, you got to figure, it might be stretching things a little thin. And you know what? It is stretching things a little thin. It's not a terrible movie. It's fine. It's just not, it doesn't seem as good as it could be. There's some smiles here, some chuckles. 2 stars. Let's stick on the animated movie bandwagon, this time with a stop-motion animated film from Leica, the people who made Coraline and Paranorman. One of their latest was Box Trolls. Box Trolls, not quite as good as those other 2, but still pretty fun. These Leica movies always look very charming with, you know, really fun production design, really fun creatures and animation. You know, you're always guaranteed a pretty fun time with these. 3 stars. Let's try and get as far away from Box Trolls as we can with Regarding Henry, the late 80s, early 90s, somewhere in there, classic where Harrison Ford gets conked on the noggin. He's kind of a jerk, gets knocked on the head, becomes a whole different person, much nicer person, a person his family likes a lot more. It sounds sweet and a little treacly, and it kind of is, but it works. It works. Ford and Annette Bening really sell it. It's a really solid, heartwarming movie. You gotta give it 4 stars. Let's go back to horror movies, this time with The Babadook. This was a recent movie out of Australia from female director Jennifer Kent. It's about a single mom. Her husband has passed away, and now she's being haunted by a creature called the Babadook that seems to come out of one of her children's books. It's, you know, a menacing, shadowy creature that we never really see that wants to kill the mom and the kid. It's, you know, it's kind of one of those, you're not really sure if the Babadook's real, but it seems like it is kind of movies. But again, much like It Follows, it's all really well underpinned by a solid allegory. This time the Babadook seems to represent loss, and especially the loss of her husband. And much like with It Follows, the sense that it's not something you're ever going to be able to escape, but maybe it's something you can learn to live with in some way. It's a really compelling, solid movie, 3.5 stars. David Wayne of The State and Wet Hot American Summer fame, he recently brought us They Came Together with Paul Rudd and Amy Poehler. This is a real meta takeoff on romantic comedies. Very, very weird and silly, very literal movie with lots of puns and weirdness. You know, at about 90 minutes, the jokes can wear a little thin, but the actors and the direction, they really managed to hold the whole thing together much better than it probably should at that kind of a length. It's a pretty funny movie, not perfect movie, 2.5 stars. Hercules in New York. This is the first Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. Arnold Schwarzenegger stars as Hercules, who gets sent to modern-day New York. It's so early in Arnold's career, he's credited as Arnold Strong, and in the original version of the movie, it was completely overdubbed. The version I saw, we had Arnold's voice back, which alleviates some of the pain, but folks, this is not a good movie. It overstays its welcome very quickly. It is very cheap. Even the natural Arnold charisma can't save this one. There's something to be said for that it co-stars Arnold Stang, who some of you might know from he did a lot of like Hanna-Barbera voices. He's in It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. It's nice to see him. It's kind of nice to see him and Arnold together, but it never works at all. This is a half-star movie all the way. Folks, I love Me the Blues Brothers, though. That is a classic movie. It's a movie that I've been watching for so much of my life that it is hard for me to sit down and say, is this a good movie? I'm not sure. The plot is a little bit all over the place. Some of it doesn't really make a lot of sense, but it's a movie that charms the heck out of me. You gotta love the musical numbers. I love the getting the band back together, road tripness of it all. To me, it's a movie that's endlessly classic. I can recognize it has flaws, though, so I'm gonna give it 4 stars. Now let's talk about a movie where they're gonna take your face off. That's Face Off. This is the movie where Nicolas Cage and John Travolta are a good guy and a bad guy who swap faces. This movie should not work at all, but somehow it kind of does. It's certainly in that good, bad movie sort of area, but John Woo elevates the whole thing into an action spectacle that you really gotta see. I liked it quite a bit. I'm gonna give it 2.5 stars. Let's journey to the final frontier with Star Trek IV, the Star Trek movie that takes the least amount of its time in space. This is the one where they have to go back in time and save the whales. It sounds dumb, but it's charming as all heck. The cast is a lot of fun. They get to do a light sort of comedic adventure. A lot of great things, a lot of fun seeing the familiar crew of the Enterprise out hanging around the world of the 1980s San Francisco. Good stuff. You want to see it. One of your better Star Trek movies, 4 stars. Now here's one I was surprised by. This is Journey to the West, Conquering the Demons. This is Stephen Chow's movie from a few years ago. He did Kung Fu Hustle and Shaolin Soccer, which are really fun movies. I had not heard of this one, but I caught it. This one's set in China back in the day, and it's about a guy who has to fight. He fights a bunch of demons. Eventually gets like 3 or 4 of them kind of beholden to him. I think he's going to use him to fight crime. It has that wacky Stephen Chow vibe, but with a lot of heart in it. This is a really fun movie. I enjoyed a lot. 4 stars. Let's talk about going back in time again. We went back to see the whales. We went back to China. I mean, there was no time travel, but it's a movie that's set in the past. But a movie that does have time travel, that's Mr. Peabody and Sherman. This is the update, the theatrical update of the classic Rocky and Bullwinkle cartoon about the dog, Mr. Peabody, his time machine, and his young boy, Sherman. Sherman's a people. Don't worry about it. The movie, it's okay. It's got some chuckles, not so hot. Should you see it? I don't know, maybe. It's a 2-star. Now, if you're like me, you have at some point in the last 5 years said to yourself, now Paul Williams is dead, right? It turns out Paul Williams is not dead. Paul Williams, this is the guy who wrote so many classic songs in the 70s. For somebody like me, especially the songs from the Muppet movie, Rainbow Connection, Moving Right Along, those great songs. He's about, yay high, star of that movie Phantom of the Paradise. Turns out he's not dead, and a documentarian did a documentary all about how he's not dead. Went and found Paul Williams, followed him around. Paul's still got a pretty nice career. Goes around touring, singing his songs. It's a nice movie, a nice character portrait, but it kind of is only so good. I'm going to give it 2.5 stars. A few years ago, there was a movie called The Trip that starred Steve Coogan and Rob Brydon. I loved that movie. It was all about these two guys going around England and stopping and eating places and just having conversations. It was a movie without any kind of a real plot, just two guys, friends, being funny together. I liked it a lot. So they did a sequel, The Trip to Italy, same deal, but this time they go to Italy. Didn't like it as much. Still some good conversations. I really could have done without the Rob Brydon has an affair plot. That didn't sit so well with me. But otherwise, a pretty fair movie, 2.5. I gotta give a lot of credit to Lake Bell for writing and directing a feature within a world. This is one where Lake Bell, she also stars, she plays a woman who wants to break into the world of voicing over movie trailers, which is something they don't typically let women do. So it's an interesting look at that kind of world with some nice, funny, and human moments as she tries to get in there and do her thing. It's not great, but it's good, 2 stars. Now, a movie that is terrific, that I recommend you run out and see that you've never heard of, this is Cuban Fury. Cuban Fury is a movie from England from a couple of years ago that stars Nick Frost, who you probably have seen in Shaun of the Dead or Hot Fuzz. In this one, he's a guy who works at a kind of a cubicle office place. He falls for Rashida Jones and starts taking Cuban dancing lessons to woo her. It's a terrifically charming, heartfelt, and funny movie that also has a great turn from Chris O'Dowd as the guy who's trying to win Rashida Jones herself. I recommend it highly. Go out and see it. 3.5 stars. That's it this time for Every Movie Ever. We've reviewed a bunch more movies. I don't know if we've done enough, but we'll keep at it until we've reviewed every movie that's ever been. Thanks for watching.